I got the beanie on because it's cold outside. And so we're going to cozy up to the fireplace. I don't have a fireplace here, but we're going to cozy up. We're going to read some of your pro wrestling opinions you die on a hill for. For some of the smarter friendos out there, you probably already pegged exactly what this video series is. It's, my cat wants out. It's basically just pro wrestling hot takes. That's kind of what it is. But it's phrased different because everybody uses the whole hot takes thing. Let's go ahead and start this off with Michelle Marty, who says The Rock versus Hulk Hogan was the drizzling shits. I love the term drizzling shits. It's so disgusting, and yet it's hilarious. So this match is interesting. I enjoy this match, but I am under no illusion that this is anything but two guys with an unreal amount of history in the business in a match that a lot of people, even probably like a year earlier, never would have thought would have been possible. The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. And it did feel like a passing of the torch moment, although it's hilarious that Hogan passed the torch like multiple times before then. And so this really wasn't even a passing of the torch thing. It was more of a, the two biggest names of their time, I guess, match. Regardless, the crowd was huge into it. But if your litmus test, if your criteria is if two other jabronis in the mid card, like by that time, if they had wheeled out a couple of the natural born thrillers, if they got like Sean Stasiak and Sean O'Hare to do, there were two Seans in the natural born thriller? I guess so. If you got those, or above average Mike, what's his face? If you got them in the ring together to do this exact same match, it would be really confusing. And it would probably not be all that great. I don't think it would get the same type of reaction. So yeah, I don't agree that it's a drizzling shits, because I think that, the equity somebody builds in pro wrestling, I think that equity kind of means something. You can infuse that into a story. But I love that. That's my favorite. That's my favorite pro wrestling, because it's the drizzling shits. I'm going to use that on the thumbnail, and I have to blur out shits because I don't think you can put that on YouTube. What do you guys, what else you got for you? Ad206 says, Shawn Michaels didn't do anything wrong or egregious in his match against Hogan. Boy, it's just shit on Hulk Hogan Day, isn't it? I'm down with that. Says, it looked the same as a Mr. Perfect or Sergeant Slaughter match against Hogan 15 years earlier. It just looked odd in 2005 WWE. Yeah, but don't you think HBK probably knew that? Because here's the thing, it didn't even look like an HBK match. Now, if it had come out that like HBK was #1 Hulk Hogan fan, and that backstage they were like, oh man, you know what we should do? I should completely oversell like it's one of those old Mr. Perfect matches. Then I think maybe the perception of the match might be different. Oh, he's really paying homage to the strength of Hulkamania. But we all kind of know that's not the case. Like in this one, for like the wrestling fans who kind of like, know the story about this match, how Hogan came in, they were going to do him versus HBK, and they were going to like do, I think, 3 matches, splitting a couple of them. And then I think Hogan goes over in the end. And then it turned into 2 matches, and then it was just 1 match. And Hogan was like, yeah, this is all I'm going to do. Knowing that and seeing HBK take the piss out of it is hilarious. Is it wrong? No. Did it obviously confuse Hulk Hogan? Definitively, yes. I think like if you look at Hogan's face, he's like, what the hell's going on here, brother? So it is hilarious. But yeah, I think the perception would be different if like the backstage sort of stories were different. If it was like, oh, HBK really wanted to, put over the power of Hulkamania. But I don't think that's really what happened there. Carson Luke says we need at least one of the hardcore cruiserweight titles back in WWE programming. You know what, Carson? I agree with this. Why not both? Remember like last year, I think, when they had, maybe it was earlier this year, I don't know, Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed in a feud, and they were just like, everything was just coming down. It was off the rails. If they had established some sort of, I'm not going to say hardcore, because I don't think WWE would ever do like hardcore wrestling, but if they did like some sort of title that would pay homage to or celebrate just pure monster destruction, I think that could be kind of fun. I think that would be really fun. I think that would be a huge crowd pleaser to get like bigger wrestlers to like a Haas title. I think that'd be sick. I think you could definitely do something like that. A cruiserweight. I don't know about a cruiserweight because so many of the wrestlers are small these days. That being said, I do think WWE should totally purchase TNA, scrap the company, but keep the X Division. I'm joking. They shouldn't scrap TNA. But I do think that an X Division title, something like that, where it's like, oh, innovative wrestling. I think that'd be cool. I think they should totally do something like that. I'm a fan of titles. More titles, the better as far as I'm concerned. Have a nice day. Productions says Cody Rhodes is the most boring promo in wrestling today. You know what's wild about this? When I saw this, I thought about it. I'm like, he's not an exciting promo. He tells, probably he's the most effective at being able to structure promos in a way that really captures the crowd. But he does it in like the least flashy way. And I feel like that is a really, really underrated skill. If you can get this crowd, and he's been back with the company for years now, and he hasn't lost them. The only time he almost lost them is when he had the program with Cena. But like his promos are not overwhelming. They're not super flashy. They're not super funny. But my God, he's got the crowd wrapped around his little finger every single one of these things. So I don't think he's a boring promo, even though, look, anybody who goes out there and they're like, hey, talk for 10 minutes. That should never be a thing. Dialogue in wrestling really needs to be kept at a minimum. That being said, when Cody goes out there with the mic, he's never wutted. The crowd is always into it. And I feel like that's a really, really special, underrated skill. So, but if it's not your jam, I get it. Conrad says, if Magnum TA hadn't been injured in a car accident, the NWA would have taken over would have overtaken the WWF. Magnum TA, the man to have taken the wrestling wars to Vince McMahon. I kind of don't see it. And I think it's because if there's one thing that Vince McMahon really understood, the one thing that he really actually did sort of, he took Hulk Hogan, saw what Hulk Hogan was doing, and was like, hey, you know what? It'd be great if we New Yorked him up, if we gave him a little Broadway razzle dazzle, put him on MTV, put him in bright yellow and red. I don't know what Hogan was wearing in Vern's territory. Probably yellow and red. I don't know. But Vince McMahon brought the razzle dazzle to WWF. And it's my opinion that the razzle dazzle and the MTV is 1,000% what sold the WWF. Plus, I'll be honest with you, as much as I loathe to admit it, Hulk Hogan, the charisma that is necessary. It's one thing to have like a 65-inch screen television these days in the 2025. But back in 1985, you had these little tiny TVs. So your charisma had to be big in order to pop out of those TVs. And he had Hulk Hogan, he had Mr. T, he had Roddy Piper, right? He picked out all these great charismatic talents from around the various territories, and then he put them there on MTV and he made them cool. That was Vince. That was Vince McMahon. If you take a look at where WWF was back in 1980, 81, like before he bought the company from his dad, and then what he did with it in a very quick, if you ever listen to a Bob Backlund promo, oh my God. And that guy was champion for 5 years. That's crazy. So I don't know. Magnum TA, look, I think this guy was a stud and I think he was pretty awesome. I don't think that style of wrestling was the kind of thing that, even though it made a lot of money in the territories where it was thriving, I don't know if that is the vehicle for a national expansion that you'd put on MTV. Could I see Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair on MTV? Yeah, probably. But a lot of the wrestlers that made up the rest of the roster, they were kind of meat and potato guys, Not exactly Hollywood razzle dazzle New York type thing. Whatever the fuck that means, Steve. Let's go ahead. Before we continue here, I want to bring this up. You guys know I've been pushing this shit. I've been working like a madman over my drawing desk over there. But in the meantime, over at mfshophere.com, I used to publish comic books back in the day, and I still do artwork. I've been gearing up for a new comic book. I'm on page like 3. I was on page 7 of this other one, but then I came up with a better idea. I was like, oh, I just want to do this one instead. That's sort of my thing, is like I'll start stuff and I won't finish it. But right now, you can buy my bullshit over at mfshophere.com. I've got some other artwork over there, more to come. So check that out. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into this next one from Ninja Killa, who says, I think that Money in the Bank has truly ran its course as a concept. They did some good and creative things with it in the past and it elevated some guys, gals, but now it just feels like they still do it because everyone is accustomed to it. You know what, man? Yes, they do it because it's on the schedule. But so is the Royal Rumble. You know, so is Elimination Chamber. I feel like WWE and even AEW, and I wish AEW would make the Casino Gauntlet a simply annual event. Fuck it. Make it their Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? Have that be the thing that propels the next thing. And that's what Money in the Bank is. In theory, it's supposed to be a plot device that amps up the tension for a certain character and for a certain scenario, the world title situation. So I'm cool with it as long as, like anything else, as long as it's well executed. You need to have it work. And too often, especially in the last days of Vince, it didn't really work that well. I thought Damian Priest's cash-in was awesome. It's just after, you know, a couple months of him not having a really great title reign, it was like, well, boy, they don't really know what they're doing with this. But the actual cash-in was really good. So I don't think it's run its course as a concept. I just think it's a plot function that we can expect every year and get excited about and debate, oh, who's going to win this year? And then get mad when our guy doesn't win or our gal doesn't win. So I disagree with this, but I know I've seen this a lot. They should shelve Money in the Bank. But then what are they going to do in its stead? What are they going to do in its absence? You got to put some big anchor event right there. Otherwise, we're going to be bored out of our fucking minds because like WWE trying to string together compelling storylines really isn't their strong suit these days. Next up, we've got Legal Forearm Shot, who says Balls Mahoney is the best name ever. Au contraire, Man Mountain Rock would like to have a word with you. Balls Mahoney is a really, really good name, though. But Man Mountain Rock, Jesus, what a fucking name. That is a truly epic name right there. Max Payne was his other name. Tuna Felt says Austin's heel run was entertaining as hell and only gets a bad rap because of how Austin spoke about it after retirement. So, fun story. WrestleMania 17. I'm there at, what was that place called? It was a bar in the San Fernando Valley. They used to, well, not Hooters. That was a different one. It was a bar in the San Fernando, Yankee Doodles in the San Fernando Valley. I don't know if it was there anymore. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. And I was there watching with just a sea of wrestling fans, or at least as much of a sea that could fit into like your standard Chili's probably. And so we're all sitting there watching it on the big screen. Wonderful way to watch wrestling, by the way. An absolutely killer way to watch wrestling. And it was for WrestleMania 17. And Austin turned heel. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is a bad idea. This does not work. This is stupid. And I hate it all. And that was before Austin ever had a chance to say anything good or bad about it. I thought it was the worst thing in the world. So yeah, no, I don't think it gets a bad rap because of that. I enjoyed elements of the comedy, but you could tell this was just like a lobotomized version of Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's why people popped so hard when he came back. So yeah, I don't know about all this, man. I think that it was a bad move. We'll end on this one. We got a couple more. Zoe851 says Carmelo Hayes' finisher is currently the worst in the company. Nobody just stands in the ring, hunched for over 30 seconds, waiting for an axe kick. Yeah, that's a little too like reliant on something that's not likely to happen. You kick somebody in the gut and then you have time to go all the way up and then drop an axe kick. On top of that, it's going to kill that dude's spine, his tailbone. My prediction on this, Carmelo Hayes will find a new finisher within the next 24 months. Maybe even 12 months, but 24 to be sure. I think they're going to give him a bit of a repackage and he'll probably do it then. Two more. Fox Star Killer. The Rock's true greatest rival of all time was Triple H, not Austin. Austin was just the most profitable rival Rock ever had. Yeah, hard agree. And it's a feud that continues on to this day. Because clearly, Rock really wanted to run creative. Or at least he wanted his people to. And Triple H, boy, that good. He's good at the old politics game because he's still around. But yeah, I agree with that. It's crazy how long that rivalry has existed. And yet they still seem to really like each other. Ozzy says, Biker Taker is the best version of Undertaker. Survey says, this is the wrong screen. Yes, I agree with this one. I 1,000% agree with this one. I do not like the supernatural Undertaker guy. I think it's cheesy as hell and doesn't make any sense. He's an Undertaker, but he's called the Dead Man. I thought the Undertaker's supposed to handle the dead men. I like this is the dude who I can relate to. I'm not a motorcyclist, but I do wear beanies like the Undertaker. By the way, great news for everybody out there. A WrestleJuice beanie is on the way. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks or so in this cold, cold weather, you will have an opportunity because I like to check these things out first. I got one on the way. It says WrestleJuice right here, but it's in a cool red font. And so hopefully you guys will like it, and I'll wear it on this head of mine. And yeah, you'll enjoy it. Anyways, that's going to do it for this show. We'll see you guys around.